In the last 2 days, I've received two different emails asking me about getting a job in digital accessibility. So I'm going to read through these emails and then I'll add additional context whether or not you want to get a job or pursue a career or start your own business in digital accessibility. So this first email is titled Jobs as Accessibility Tester. It reads, Hello, Chris. What jobs are available part time and beyond, remote, that the WCAG certificate will help me get, and what is the salary range? I work in a nonprofit where the salary is not livable even with a second job. It's paycheck by paycheck. It's hard for me to leave because it's what I believe in. So I'm hoping to get a better paying part time job for now. Plus, we have to move to a state that's more affordable. Accessibility is perfect for me because I believe everyone has the right to information. Thanks. So, one note before we read my response: you always have to take care of yourself first. Even if there's a cause that you believe in, you have to take care of yourself first. One way to think about this is okay, maybe if the nonprofit, you can't live on the nonprofit, and even with a second job, then you work somewhere else where you make more money. And then I know this person writes they believe in the cause. So if you believe in the cause, then you can contribute in other ways. Maybe it's through a donation, maybe it's by volunteering your time, but you always have to take care of yourself first. So continuing down, let's just read through what I wrote in response. Hi, getting a job isn't as simple as taking the WCAG course. WCAG knowledge is a prerequisite for these jobs, but they're going to want to see experience and evidence of your ability to perform the job, among other things. Look through alijobs.com, a11yjobs.com, and you'll have an understanding for what these jobs are looking for and what salary ranges they're offering. Best of luck, Chris. And then he writes back, so any advice on what I can do to get the full training? I must add, I currently QA websites and already do accessibility testing as a part of it. Well, there's not going to be a full training to get a job unless the job's requiring it to be an applicant. But it's not a full training. It's more, think of yourself as like a video game. You're trying to constantly level up. And the more you level up and the more attractive you are to these recruiters and HR people who are hiring, the better chance you have of landing one of these jobs. So that's what it is. It's not necessarily training that you're after. It's looking at what these jobs are requiring, what their preferences are, and then trying to meet as many of those bullet points as possible. And sometimes they're flexible and they won't indicate that they're flexible, but it could be something like experience. Maybe they say 5 years experience, which is a lot in digital accessibility. Let's say you only have 3. Well, there's still a really good chance they'll still consider you. But it's going to come down to how you fare against these other candidates, these other applicants. So you're going to want to make sure that you look as good as possible. And of course, when we're talking about digital accessibility, you cannot get around the web content accessibility guidelines. That's going to be essential for any job. But that's just knowledge. Merely being aware of what is required in the web content accessibility guidelines is not going to get you a job in digital accessibility. You're going to have more than that. And so again, looking at the job board, what is it that these various jobs are requiring? What is it that they want to see? What are the bullet points they say? The more, and by the way, there's not just one job in digital accessibility. There are diverse openings out there. So when I say diverse openings, it could be anywhere from a developer who specializes in accessibility to a program manager for accessibility. So it's not just that there's one job. You're going to have to decide, what is it that I want to pursue? What does my background give me an advantage for? Where does this lead me to? And then what am I willing to accept in terms of salary, in terms of remote work, etc. So that's when it comes to looking for a job, think of it that way. what are the skills, knowledge, experience, expertise, etc., qualifications, credentials, whatever it is, what is it that these different organizations are looking for? The more of it you have, the more likely you are to get a job and to get a job with the salary that you're looking for. Now, keep in mind that the salaries are going to depend on the type of opening. So that's also going to be variable, but you just have to go through the different job openings and look. And the more you go through, the better idea you'll have of what you need to do to land one of those jobs. So that's it for that first email. Let's read the second. It's titled Seeking Your Expertise on Building a Career in Accessibility Testing. Hi, Chris. I'm an IT professional with about 10 years of experience. I completed my, and I've redacted this, before locating to the US. I'm now looking to restart my IT career here. The majority of my experience has been in web testing, automation, and performance testing, and I also have a solid foundation in HTML and web design technologies. Recently, I've developed a keen interest in accessibility testing and have been pursuing courses and certifications to gain deeper knowledge in this area. I came across your YouTube channel, website, and your ADA book, all of which I found incredibly informative. I'm now looking to pivot my career into accessibility testing, either as a contractor or a full-time employee. I'd love to hear any suggestions or advice you might have on how best to approach this transition. Would it be possible to connect and discuss further? So one note here to start. This background is a technical background, which is going to be a really nice advantage because there are so many openings for technical experts in accessibility. And if you have this background, it's going to you're going to be wired in a way where you're going to pick up the technical aspects of accessibility easier, and perhaps use your previous knowledge and build upon that. And accessibility works in tandem with technical knowledge. So I think it's going to lend well. As far as just connecting and discussing further, this is where I offered a consulting session because I have to get paid for my time. I am so busy. There's just the way I connect with so many different people is through YouTube. That's how I do it. And so I try to put out as much information as possible. And even so, you still see like I don't have YouTube videos. It's just not often as I'd like to post, and I'm just so busy. I have to charge for calls. But yes, and so that's what I said. Is I said, yeah, we can set up a consulting session, and then he wrote back, "Hi, Chris. Thank you for your prompt response and for details about the consulting session. I appreciate your willingness to help. Before proceeding with the Zoom call, I would like to confirm whether there's a guarantee or clear path to securing a job following our discussion. I'm eager to move forward, but I would feel more comfortable knowing that this would directly lead to a job opportunity. Please let me know if this would be the case, and I'll be happy to schedule a time for the session." So there is no guarantee, and I think, but I don't know that he was indicating whether it would guarantee a position, a contracting position at accessible.org. No, merely talking to me doesn't guarantee anything. This would just be a consulting session where I would be. So the way I look at consulting is I'm going to provide information specific to your circumstance. So if you ask me a question, in this case, about your background, we could talk about what jobs this potentially opens up, et cetera. So it's going to be specific to your situation. This is not going to be general information. It's going to be custom to you. And so that's what the consulting session would be. And so the advantage here is that you get my experience, knowledge, and expertise really distilled down into your situation. So I'm telling you, this is what I think based on what you're telling me, based on everything I've gone through for the last 7 years that I've had to figure out mostly for myself. And so that's what you'd be getting, is just that, like, it's like advancing faster. Like you get that information really quick, get that experience. I have 7 years experience in digital accessibility. You get that really, really quick for your specific situation. So that's what it would be, but there's no guarantee. And with accessible.org, I talk, like, everyone I consider for a contracting position, it's It's really whether or not I think you can do what I need you to do. I have many people who have reached out to me and have asked about uh, some kind of contracting position, and it's always right now I have everyone that I need, but I always consider people, and I'll keep someone in mind if something comes up. If you tell me, hey, I specialize in this, if you ever need help with this, let me know. I'll consider that later, and then I could potentially reach back out to you. But there's no guarantee if you talk to me that of anything working with accessible of any of the kind. It's just here it would just be consulting with me, and trying to asking me specific questions based on whatever you'd like to know. I mean, and a lot of stuff I've answered on this YouTube channel, but I can understand if someone doesn't want to go through the videos and try to uncover all of the various information I've talked about. So in this next section, I'm scrolling through a document now. We're getting to an outline. Let's talk. I want to put just more in context to help you better understand um, what role I'm providing or what role I'm fulfilling. So there are two primary paths here with digital accessibility. For you might be looking at a job and or a career, or you might be looking into contracting positions and or starting your own small business. So the advantages to a job or career are you're faster to cash because as soon as you start working, you get that paycheck. There's also less work because you don't have all of the responsibilities of let's say operating a small business or even contracting where you're continually looking for contracting positions. And then there's less responsibility because with a job or career, you're only responsible for what you're responsible for. And then there are other people at the organization that's going to take care of various other responsibilities. And then you have more seeming stability. While you're at the job, while you're employed, you've got the stability of that paycheck's going to come every 2 weeks or whatever the case is, and you don't have nothing's going to change. It's not like if that just doesn't suddenly change. It's not like there's less business and you get less money. No, it stays the same, but you can always get fired. So that's the other part of having a job that is unstable, is that you can get fired at any time. Now, when it comes to contracting and side gigs, and then maybe even transitioning into your own small business, there's more upside here. You can get paid more money because you're not limited by the job. You can go out and do whatever you want. There's also more freedom. You don't have to listen to anybody because you're in charge of everything. And that goes right along with control. So there are pros and cons to both. Obviously, I prefer path number two. I think it's the best path, but it's also going to depend on your disposition, your aversion to risk. It's going to depend on how you work best, right? It's an individual thing. It's like what suits you best, and maybe it's a hybrid approach where you take a job and then you are also working on contracting on the side. Now, with path number two, also keep in mind that you have more freedom, but in a way, you've created a job for yourself. So unless you get to the point where you're just overseeing operations, you still have a job in effect, but it's just that you get to decide everything, and you could potentially make even more. But obviously, there's the downside where you don't make anything, and that gets into responsibilities. It's not only your responsibility to fulfill the work, then you also have to market yourself, and you have to make sure that you're getting clients. You have to make sure you're getting paid. You have to process payments, and the list goes on. So why are we doing all this? Well, because digital accessibility is growing. There's market demand, right? And that's what leads to the higher salaries. That's what leads to more money being available. We know there's less competition because there simply are not enough qualified professionals to fulfill all of these different roles and openings that are available. So what does this mean? And I have here faster to get started. That's not even right though. It's not faster to get started. It's more like faster to success, like faster to have some sort of success, because you can get started fast in any sector. But what you can't do is you can't experience success as fast because it's just more competitive, more crowded. You can get paid more versus other sectors. And again, that just leads to the market dynamics. We're getting paid more because there are less people available. It's not, there's just not as much competition. Although we've seen, even with digital accessibility, of course, we've seen several new agencies and companies enter into this space in recent years because they recognize the market opportunity. And that's what I have next here: market, more opportunities, and then more security. And this is versus other sectors. So let's just think of marketing with the marketing sector. Do you need to have marketing? No. I mean, in some ways, you could make a case for it, but like, you don't need to hire a marketing agency. Maybe you have all the clients you need. You don't need any more clients. But with digital accessibility, this is now mandatory. You must do it, or else you face penalty of law. So that gets into compliance. So that securitizes digital accessibility to a um, much more of an extent than to other sectors. But just because there's opportunity here, it doesn't mean that there's a guarantee of success. It doesn't mean that you won't have to work for success, and it doesn't mean that you don't have to be skilled or knowledgeable. You still have to be able to offer and fulfill whatever it is that you are claiming that you can do. So you still have to have all of the prerequisites, and that being that you're going to have to make sure to put in the work, and you're going to have to make sure that you have the skills and the knowledge and the expertise necessary. So where do I fit into all of this? Because you know, people, it's like that one person that emailed me asked, well, if I take your course, does this mean that it's going to lead to a job, or what job would this lead to? And then the other emailer asked me, well, if I consult with you, does that guarantee me a contracting position? And let's say it's with accessible.org. No, where I come into play is look at me as a resource, right? I'm one of the rare people, in fact, one of the only people in many regards that is first of all been in this space for a several years, right? 7 years at this point. I have experience and knowledge. I've worked with hundreds of clients, and I have a YouTube channel, and I'm willing to share this information with you, and you can also consult with me. So I have a lot of experience that I'm bringing forward. I have a lot of knowledge that I'm bringing forward, as well as information. So I create a lot of guides, and I have these courses. And so these are all resources. So cumulatively, I am a resource that you can potentially use to advance further, whether you are starting a business or whether you are looking to get a job. I have this experience and knowledge, and it could potentially help you in those endeavors. So how? Well, when we have a resource, we want to leverage that resource, right? So when we leverage that resource, you're hoping to advance further, advance faster, make more money, prevent mistakes. So it's not just making of money, it's losing of money. So let's say that you take one of my courses and it prevents you from making a mistake. Let's say you are starting your own business. Let's say you're getting into contracting, and you take my course, and there's the mistake that never happens. You don't deal with the client who would have caused a lot of trouble for you and cost you money, and you would have lost time, and you never dealt with them in the first place because you took my course. Well, that is one way in which you could leverage me as a resource, and then make more money. Maybe you think like I give you an idea for a business opportunity in digital accessibility. Well, again, you're leveraging that information to go further, advance faster. So same thing, right? Like, let's just say you're working with this YouTube channel. Even though the YouTube channel is free, everything here is free, and I really like the YouTube channel because it gives me a way to talk to a lot of different people at once. So let's just say the YouTube channel helps you advance further, faster. Maybe you just found out about digital accessibility on happenstance. Maybe you weren't even looking at it, and YouTube suggested the video because you've been looking into different career paths, and you decide maybe I should look into digital accessibility. And then because of the video, I help advance you faster because you're not wasting time looking at, I don't know, let's say you're not wasting time looking at job openings at companies that sell overlays, whatever the case is. But with all of this said, you're looking for a return on investment. You're looking for an ROI on these different resources. And with YouTube, it's just going to be your time paying attention to me, listening to what I have to say. That's the channel is free, right? With the courses, yes, there's the money involved and the time you spent going through the courses. But this is how we can play that video game, and you can start to level up because you start to understand things that you never would have otherwise unless you came across this information or unless you went through the same experiences. But there's a lot of knowledge that's distilled and comes through when I'm talking on these videos. And it's just me talking through what I've been through, analyzing the situation, coming back and relaying like what I think is the best information for whatever the case is. So as I was saying, we buy for a return on investment. So we pay more or we invest more to get even more. Think about when you're investing time into something. The more time you're investing, you're really trying to get something out of whatever it is you're investing in. So let's just say it's social media. Social media wants you to invest all of they want as much time from you as possible. So what are you getting out of that? So wherever you're directing your money or your energy, whatever it is, what is it that you are getting out of it? Because you're getting something out of it. Whether or not you like that something, whether or not that something represents value is another question. But that's why we're doing anything that we're doing is we think we're getting something out of it. So when it comes to paying more, we pay more to get even more, right? So if we pay for something in a business context, not like an entertainment context, but like, when we're paying in business, like let's just say we're taking $100 course and that we're hoping as a result of the course afterwards we'll get a $500 client or whatever it is. The course will teach us how to do XYZ. We can go and execute on that. And so that means that our original investment has now returned a multiple. And then hopefully that keeps on going. So let me bring this back into real life and tell you some of the things that I pay for on an ongoing basis and have done so recently. So Canva, I use Canva a lot. I use Canva to make the thumbnails on my videos. That's $13 a month. I use a video recording software that I'm using right now. It's $13 a month. It's Tela. I recently paid for a marketing psychology consultant. He did various work for me, and that was $2,700. I also bought his course. That was $99. I also registered my LLC, and that was somewhat recently. That was $300. That was this year. Video equipment. I've paid $1,300 for video equipment. I'm not using as much right now. I bought a camera. What I found is that it's slow to record with the camera. Also, I was never completely satisfied with the camera quality, even though I bought an expensive camera. But I bought lights and other things that associate with the camera, had a lens, etc. Anyways, that ended up costing me about $1,300, and that was over the last 2 years. And then for web development, I've paid probably $4,000 or more in the last several months. So these are all resources that I have invested into that I am trying to get a return on my investment for. That's the reason I have paid for them in the past and will continue to pay for these different things in the future, is because I want to make sure that, if these things are paying off for me, then I'm going to continue to buy them or, continue on the same continuum that I was on. Like, so with the marketing consultant, I've hired him, I've got the information, and for now, that's all I need, but maybe I'll come back to him. And when it comes to jobs, that's talking about business, but when it comes to jobs, it's usually not one thing. So even if you go to college, right? Or even if it's a university and you go to this college, you're doing so because it's under the illusion, or not, it's not an illusion. It doesn't have to be an illusion, but you're doing so under the frame of mind that this college will do something for you. Now, maybe it's just that you want to have fun at college, but looking beyond just the entertainment value of college and the doing something fun for 4 years, it will look good on your resume. You could be going to a certain college to open up their alumni network, access their alumni network. Maybe they'll help you get internships. Maybe they'll have career fairs that will give you a direct path to a job. But even then, there is no guarantee. So we're doing all of this to advance. We're trying to level up. And so if you're continually leveling up, you're going to advance further and further and further. And coming back to digital accessibility, you can get a better job, you can get a higher paying job, or maybe you already have this right now. So a lot of people that watch this channel are already experienced in accessibility, and so this is something they've already put in the groundwork, and so all they have to do is just continue forward. Maybe it's just a few more things, but either way, if you are just starting and you start leveling up right now, you can advance fairly quickly, depending on how fast you pick up on these things. Remember, with jobs, sometimes it is these arbitrary thresholds, but most of this comes down to, can you do what they need from you, whoever it is, whether it's clients or whether it's the organization that you might work for. Can you do can you fulfill the roles that they have, or the responsibilities that they have? Can you take care of these different tasks? And if you can, then and if you can show you can, that's what this initial process is for, right? That's why you go through multiple rounds of interviews. That's why they ask to see your references. They want to make sure that you can do what you can say you can do. And if you can, you are very likely going to get that job. Now, there are no guarantees. What we're trying to do is put ourselves in the best position possible. So think of quadrants on a graph. We're trying to put ourselves in that upper quadrant where we have everything stacked in our favor. It's like another analogy, blackjack. Like we're trying to stack the deck to where we have all of the face cards in our favor. Like, the more you can do, the more likely it is you're going to get that job. The more likely it is that you're going to get a higher salary, etc. And with business, the more you do in your favor, the more likely it is that you're going to level up sooner. With marketing, it's like I have, more people know about me. If more people know about me, then I'm more likely to get clients. And then if I get more clients, then I'm more likely to get referrals because I do a really good job, etc. So we're all trying to level up as soon as possible. So it just depends where you're at right now, and then evaluating that and then decide, okay, now that I know where I'm at, and now that I know where I want to be, what do I need to do to go from point A to point B? And so you're trying to find the most efficient and effective path to doing that. Because we can find a potentially efficient path, but is it effective? So it might cost less and we could do it in a shorter amount of time, but do we actually advance to point B? And that's what you want to make sure of. You want to make sure that your efforts do not go in vain. You want to make sure that you're able to successfully do what you're trying to accomplish, whatever that might be. That's why we start out with the two paths. The two paths, again, being job or business. Do you want to own your own business, or do you want to be in a job? Or you could also do both. So there is hybrid potential here, because you can definitely look for jobs while you're working on the side. Now, there is the give and take in that your time will be divided, but it is something that you can work in together. So that I think will give you better context for approaching jobs, approaching starting your own business, and then just context for not only this channel and myself and my courses, but just understanding resources, and then putting more thought in behind why we're buying what we're buying. What is it, or why we're spending our time where we're spending our time. What is it that you are spending time with? What is it that you are buying? Look at your purchases, look at your time allocation, and that will tell you where you are headed. And if you want to go somewhere else, then you just have to reallocate your time and reallocate your money and your energy. Where's your energy going? Reallocate that and to exactly where you want to be, and then you'll level up faster and faster the more time and the more energy and potentially and or money that you invest in a certain direction. So I've covered what I wanted to cover for this video. I will include a link to my How to Start a Digital Accessibility Business course in the description. And I'll include a link to my WCAG course as well. And then if I'll include a link to alijobs.com, A11Y jobs.com. That's the job board that I like. It's really easy to use. You can just go on there and they've got continually updated jobs. So I'll include a link to that. And then if I think of any other resources or information, I will include a link to that in the description as well.